Segment 3, Gold and Black Live, and a frequent visitor, at least an annual visitor, as though these teams don't play very often in football. We talked to him about basketball, of course. Chris Balas from the Wolverine.com joins us. You know, Purdue hasn't been to the Big House since 2011. I think Chris was 8 years old when that happened. But Purdue is making a return visit, and it may not be a pleasant one, but it's going to be a night game. The first time the Boilermakers have played at night in the Big House. Maybe the first game at night in front of 100,000 people plus. I don't have to look that one up. But Chris, there's a lot of talk about what's going on in the world of Michigan football right now, but they are actually going to have a football game on Saturday night, and this is an extremely good football team. The Wolverines bring to the table. Purdue fans saw that last year, parts of what you're seeing now in the Big Ten championship game. But talk about just kind of what you expect this Saturday. You've obviously got to, I guess that you could have distractions not only from what's gone on the sideline situation or the sign stealing, but also the fact that you got Penn State next week. But my guess is the Wolverines will probably be pretty focused on Saturday night.
Yeah, coming off a bye week, right? And all the stuff that's been going on, they're hungry to prove that it wasn't just the sign stealing, that it's such a good team. As some of these writers and these coaches are saying, man, that's a 25-point, come on, man. I get it. It was terrible. It's wrong. And I'm waiting to see what the facts come out. But let's not inflate this thing here to make it, to be the worst scandal in college football history yet. Let's see what happens first, is all I'm saying. So what I will say about this team is it's probably the best team that I've seen since 1997 overall.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, it is a national championship team. Defensively, so strong up front. Maybe the best interior defensive line and deepest that I've seen at Michigan in my decades covering Michigan football. J.J. McCarthy is everything that he's been advertised. He's really the thing that's keep making this offense go, whereas the last couple of years it's been the running game, and now it is J.J. McCarthy. And he's been sacked, I think, 10 times this year. He's been pressured a lot more than that, but his ability to escape and keep plays alive is what's really made this offense as good as it has been.
He has, just watching him in person last December in Indianapolis, he has some real, and I'm dating myself, with some John Elway qualities. He really does. He's so athletic and just gets out on the edge quickly and makes passes that and he really hasn't had. He maybe had one subpar game this year, if my memory is right or my facts are correct. But this is a guy that can win the Heisman Trophy and bring it back to the Big Ten. I mean, you look at that landscape out there, and he's got to be. He's in the conversation without question. If the Wolverines stay where they are currently throughout the rest of this regular season into the postseason, I think he's going to be there. What say you?
Yeah, if he's got big games against Penn State and that defense on the road and against Ohio State, those two high-profile games, then, yeah, I think he's going to have a case, right? And depending on, if the Big Ten allows Michigan to continue playing, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, right? You never know, man, in these situations. So, but what makes him so special is he does it without ego, right? He's one of those guys that it's all about the team. He gets into the end zone and he's like, thank you, boys. Thanks for helping me. Just one of the most down-to-earth kids I have ever covered in this sport. So playing for Michigan. So, and that's what makes him so good. He can make all the throws. He's not huge. The Chicago Bears, I think, were in watching him yesterday, Alan, in the building. Everybody's thinking about him being a first-round pick, and everybody talks about, well, he's not a big guy, but man, he just makes plays, and the zip that he has on the ball and his ability to make things happen with his feet too is underrated. So really one of the better, maybe the best dual threat quarterback that Michigan's ever had.
What has made that defense? I mean, you've got talent and ability and toughness at positions 1 through 11 on that side of the ball. But when you talk about the 97 defense and Charles Woodson and the national championship team and all of that, what specifically, if you're Purdue, what do you attack? And Purdue struggled so much offensively the last 3 weeks, but what do you try to do? What can you do, so to speak?
That's a tough one because, the way they're constricting the pocket and, they're not putting up huge sack numbers, but what they are putting up is huge pressure numbers and quarterbacks having to get rid of the ball. So, and they've changed their game plans, right? They got to get the ball out quickly. So they go to that short passing game or the Hail Mary arm punt game, right? Throw it up for grabs and hope. But maybe the other corner, Josh Wallace, has been good. You got Will Johnson on one side, who's really, really good and getting better. But, if there's a weakness, then maybe it's that you can always roll your safety help over there though. So linebackers have been really good, at times inconsistent, but really good. And it's the defensive line that really makes this defense so good though. And you can't really say, okay, we need to run the ball. Minnesota did a nice job with a stretch zone, and they came out and they kind of caught Michigan off guard. Once Michigan adjusted to it, then it was lights out. There was nothing they could do. And it's like PJ Fleck said, he said, man, you know what? We could have played them 10 times and lost 52 to whatever, 10 times. They're that good. So it's going to be tough, I think, for Purdue to move the ball. So last year, I think when we talked about it, I said, hey, you know what? This is an offense under Braun that Michigan hadn't seen, and they could give them a game for a half, which they absolutely did.
Yeah.
And but I just don't see that here, because I don't see anything that Purdue does well enough to move the ball on this Michigan defense.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge because Devin Mockabee did some good things in the championship game for the early part, and I think one of the big challenges for Purdue is that Aiden O'Connell had a little different line, not a great line, but someone that could protect him. And boy, Hudson Card has really, that line has struggled, and against Michigan, it's going to be a challenge. To be the best way to describe it for Purdue. Okay, now the story that's you're probably taking about 98% of your time this week, or at least as you observe, and nobody covers it like the Wolverine.com and Chris Balas and company. But where is this spy scandal, whatever term you want to use? You hear things that there are a lot. I know that the Big Ten coaches supposedly got together and said we need to do something about this, but yet they've also been stories about coaches talking about how darn near everybody does it. So from your perspective, where do you see all this right now?
Yeah, it's kind of taken on a life of its own to the point where it's like somebody wants to keep it in the news, and like somebody's driving it. And I don't believe me. I understand it's an embarrassment, flat out. What happened was an embarrassment. There are still things to uncover. The NCAA was there last week, and they presented Michigan with some facts. Okay, this guy was doing this. There's nothing beyond that other than, okay, this guy was at these games, and we need to wait and see the facts come out. And it certainly does look damning and damaging. There's no question that what he did was wrong. And I don't care, Michigan fans are looking for bylaws and, hey, well, it doesn't say a coach can't be there. Well, what's the difference between that and giving guy, there's no difference. Let's be honest here. And then if what's alleged is true and he was on the sidelines of the Central Michigan State game, then that adds another layer to it. So what other layers are there? I want to see these layers, and I want to see who was using it, if Michigan coaches were involved and breaking down the film, which I would think of some, unless you're naive, are going to believe that's exactly what happened, right? And then when it's proven, then you have ramifications here, right? But to sit there and pull the rug out from under these guys, we've had scandals that have involved basketball programs on federal wiretap that resulted in a coach getting a 4-game suspension. And that was it. I mean, let's not go overboard here, and let's see, all right, the whole innocent until proven guilty. I know how bad it looks. And I will be the first one, just like I did during the Fab Five scandal and everything else, to say, if they did this and it is proven that they did this, then they deserve everything they get. And that's where I am now. I want to see some more of the facts come out. I'm not as concerned as others are about who opened this investigation. It is a rival, whatever. You know what? Sure, it probably was, but it doesn't excuse you from doing what you did. So again, let's just watch it play out and see what the NCAA has and go from there.
Yeah, I think it is that we all want things resolved in real time, if not in TikTok time, so to speak, and that makes it all the more challenging. From a coverage standpoint, I know they're not openly commenting about this, but do you sense any bit of challenge for the players, for coaches, anything that you see that's impacting the team, or have they cocooned it up pretty as well as they can?
Yeah, they've been paying attention, but when I had somebody go in the building the other day, they said it was business as usual. They're pissed off. We're beating all these teams because we stole their signs. Michigan State was well aware, of it. They were made aware by the Big Ten, and they went out and beat them 49-0, and it could have been 77, right? Yeah. Ohio State said they were aware of it last year and got beat by 22 points at home. Yeah. So it had nothing to do with sign stealing. So let's slow the roll here about how, okay, the only reason that they're winning is cheating. The reason they're winning is because they have 20 NFL draft picks on this team, and it's a damn good football team. And of course, if you're getting some help in the sign stealing thing, if it's legal and you're doing it legally, that's one thing. If you're doing it and game planning around it, yeah, you're going to have more of an advantage. And that is something that shouldn't be done. And it needs to be written better too by the NCAA that, hey, because nobody, when this law was written in 1994 as a cost cutting measure, it was not about having a cell phone. Nobody had cell phones and that they could videotape it on the sidelines. And it never occurred to anybody that could happen. But that's where we are. That needs to be specified. But even so, Michigan doing that was wrong. I don't care what it says. It needs to be dealt with, and we'll see who deals with it and how.
3 years ago, things were far different for Jim Harbaugh and company. It seemed like COVID year, a year that was a lost year, not only just for darn near everybody in the world of sport, but certainly not a good year for Michigan. And yet things have turned. And obviously, Michigan's got that great tradition. They recruit like Ohio State and Michigan control the Big Ten in terms of recruiting. But is there a way to put a finger on what really turned for Jim Harbaugh and company? And 2021, all of a sudden you turn into a team that's capable of making the college football playoff.
Yeah, it was a sign stealing, right? According to
yeah, right.
The fact is, they got a dominant offensive line, and it's not like they were fooling anybody. They were running up and running over people to the tune of 350 and 400 yards per game. That's flat out. They've got back to what Jim Harbaugh knows and what he does best, and that's bully ball. And they ran the ball down people's throats, and that's what they've done the last couple of years. Now he's got his elite quarterback, and he's got the culture back that turned this into a championship program. And that kind of builds on itself, right? So now I think you're going to see a pissed off team here the rest of the year. And to prove that, hey, we got to beat these teams by 25, 30 points to show that this isn't why we were winning ball games. But there's NFL talent all over this roster. Flat out, guys are playing more for the program than other guys who, had one eye or one foot out the door looking at the NFL and playing for Michigan, as they like to say. And that's really been the biggest difference.
All right, we have to ask you one basketball question, though. I know that you're not. I know you do a lot with Michigan basketball and Juwan Howard and company. Everybody's excited here for Purdue, and Michigan's always got talent. I think they come to West Lafayette. Purdue returns the trip this year or not, but just give us a little thumbnail on what the Wolverines are expecting this year from Juwan Howard's
better
team.
Meshed team. It was hard to watch last year. Some of these guys going through the motions, some of these pros. These guys played hard. They like each other. You got some new faces. Olivier Kamwa, I think, is really a man among boys. Terrace Reed is a kid ready to make a next step. You got a roster of 4- and 5-star guys, 4-star guys, maybe 1 or 2 5-stars, 1 5-star. Namari Burnett's a name that you probably remember being recruited. He's at his third school. And Doug McDaniel, I think, is a solid point guard. So they've got some talent. They're going to play hard together. They had a secret scrimmage against Marquette. I guess they won 115 to 111. You could put a lot of stock in secret scrimmages, right?
That's right.
Well,
it was Marquette, Purdue, Kansas, and who else? So the top teams all got beat, right? So,
right, exactly.
For whatever that's worth.
It means nothing. But but they put some points up. They were shooting the ball well, and that's encouraging. So I think this team will be a little bit better than people expect. Certainly not going to compete for the Big Ten, Alan, but they should be okay.
All right. Well, we hope you are hospitable. It's not your job. I understand. I know you'll be nice to Tom Dienhart when he's up.
Absolutely, I will. And I want to give a shout out to Brian Newbert, my guy, who I love. Just one of the best guys on the beat. Thinking about you, brother, and always.
Yeah. Hey, we love our relationship with our friends at thewolverine.com because we've kind of been through a lot of the same stuff together, and that's an important thing. And now partners again on the On3 network too. That's an extra good thing. So, Chris, thanks so much for your time. I want to thank Triple X on the hill, but on the level. I don't know if Chris, when you come to West Lafayette for a 2-week vacation, I'll take you there. Awesome. But it's a great spot. And of course, State Farm agent, TrentIsMyAgent.com. We appreciate you and want to thank also certainly Gordon Jackson and Mary and all the good folks at WLFI for all that. We'll be back next week. And we'll be talking Purdue basketball and then some, and also a little Purdue, Minnesota football too, which will be maybe a big game for Purdue if they wanted to do anything to try to salvage their season. So have a great week, everybody. Thanks again so much. Chris, thanks again. And we'll see you next week on Gold and Black Live.